What happens when someone figures something out? What is the objective difference between knowing something and not knowing that thing? So, if your brain, which was made from the same explosion that created the sun and the moon and the stars, how could it take clues from within the same system and actually learn things about that system? Without a mirror, your eyes cannot see themselves to determine what color they are. So, if you were to plant a tree and a single leaf fell off that tree, that would be you. And somehow the leaf would turn and look at the tree and say, "Oh, this is where I come from, and this is how you grow." How can an individual organism that was created by the system in which it is fixated discern anything about that system? Here's my theory. There's much more to reality than the universe. And the reason we were created by it is to leave it, to explore other things. I truly believe that the moment someone learns something or understands it, there's a fundamental change that happens. It's kind of like flipping through the channels, and you get a new channel every time that you understand. And I'm not interested in brain chemistry. I am a little bit, but I'm more interested in the esoteric nature of internal processes. Even on a physical level, it's like, where do they happen? You know what I'm saying? I always say you can dissect a human brain to the millimeter and never find a single thought. So this points to the temporary nature of existence in this realm, because just like waves settle after the storm, the ocean goes back to its, resting position, and the temporary experience is over. That's how the physical world is governed. It's a stream of changing information shot from the future directly to the past, and we witness it go by. But the internal landscape, where these experiences actually happen, I mean, you can say that Andromeda would still be, shooting off little, meteorites at the edge of its spiral or whatever, regardless of life. But the experience of witnessing a meteorite shoot across space is only knowable if there's an observer. And the true experience that the observer has is within themselves. And this is a representation of what's going on in the physical world. You know what I'm saying? If you can look at a flying meteorite and I can look at a flying meteorite, that means there are 3 copies of it. The one you see, the one I see, and the one that exists. Now, how can this make sense? If there's not an internal landscape that mimics everything and holds on to each temporary experience in order to form a narrative about the world. And that narrative is like a toolbox that allows you to unlock more experiences. I said that I was only minorly interested in brain chemistry, and this is on a level of semantics, vibrational therapy to energize certain synaptic regions, pulsating kinetic energy into them with sound, tickling them to wake them up in order to let them process better. And I didn't come up with this idea, but I believe that it would be way more versatile than using chemicals or drugs to try to manipulate your brain. You know what I mean? Like, if you stretch your muscle, it gets stronger. Therefore, if you stimulate your brain, it would get smarter. That's the theory. And I'm not a chemist, but I have heard from smart people, and certainly there are very smart people who subscribe to this theory. Microtubules within the brain arrange themselves in different communicative patterns with each other in order to create a neural network. You know what I'm saying? And so it's a physical, like, biological system on a Newtonian level that involves chemistry, like serotonin, but it's also a quantum computing system that works on patterns. And so if this microtubule is pointed this way and the one over there is pointed at it, well, now there's communication between the two. And so they naturally find patterns, just like in cymatics, when you vibrate a plate with sand on it and the sand forms a mandala. The microtubules in your brain are becoming stimulated and naturally falling into a pattern that has more resonant channels. Therefore, more information can be processed. I've talked about a dot at the center of the universe and an edge at the very outside. Now, the thing about this edge is that if you take a smaller portion of it and zoom in, it's going to be the same thing. A chord, aka a piece of the edge of a circle, is a fractal. And we know it's a circle because you're at the center of the observable universe. Therefore, behind you, in front of you, it's going to be the same distance everywhere. And we are one individual, so at the center of us is a singularity. How do you get from a dot to a circle? Well, you go in a straight line long enough to realize that you end up where you started and that space is curved. And then three-dimensional reality becomes an inevitability because of gravity, and hallucinations are just beyond that circle. You know what I'm saying? We are in an expanding universe that has an edge that the human mind is not bound by. When people say the physical universe, they mean just that, but the mind is esoteric, non-local, infinite. You know what I mean? It's not bound. And so hallucinations that happen in the mind don't have to succumb to the laws of physics. You understand what I'm saying? So somewhere between death and looking at